winning usually makes everything feel simpler. The scoreboard says victory. The record improves. The locker room celebrates. Headlines move on. But every now and then, a team wins a game and somehow leaves behind more questions than answers. That's the feeling hanging over Indiana right now. The Fever walked away with another result in the win column, extending momentum and giving fans another reason to believe this season is moving in the right direction. On paper, that should have been enough. Another win. Another step forward. Instead, the conversation shifted almost immediately. Not to the score. Not to the highlights. Not even to the numbers. People started replaying post-game moments. Body language became a topic. Press conference clips started circulating. Fans paused footage, watched reactions, compared comments, and tried to understand why a night that should have felt celebratory somehow felt unusually restrained. Then came the clip everyone suddenly had an opinion about. A brief post-game exchange, or depending on who you asked, the lack of one, started making rounds online. Some viewers interpreted it as a deliberate message. Others dismissed it entirely as internet overanalysis. And that's where this story gets interesting. Because isolated moments rarely explode on their own. Moments become headlines when people believe they fit into a larger pattern. That doesn't automatically mean the internet is right. It also doesn't mean people are imagining things. It means attention is already elevated. And when attention reaches that level, every glance, every quote, every small interaction starts carrying more meaning than it normally would. Indiana got the win. But somehow, that wasn't the part people remembered. If this night had unfolded the way most people expected, the conversation would have ended with history. Because regardless of where anyone stands on the noise surrounding the team, what happened on the court deserved center stage. Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston delivered one of those performances that instantly feels bigger than a regular season game. Points piled up. Momentum swung. The pace accelerated. And when the final numbers settled, something happened that hadn't happened before. Clark finished with a performance that combined scoring and playmaking at an elite level. Boston matched it with dominance inside. Together, they reached a statistical milestone that immediately entered league history, a combination of production no WNBA teammate duo had previously recorded in the same game. That should have been the headline. Two franchise pillars arriving together. Two young stars showing exactly why Indiana invested so heavily in this era. The kind of game people reference months later and say, that's when it started to feel real. And for a moment, that seemed to be the direction. Fans celebrated. Clips spread everywhere. Analysts broke down possessions and talked about chemistry, timing, and what this could mean moving forward. Then something shifted. The reaction afterward felt quieter than expected. Not negative. Not hostile. Just measured. That contrast became part of the discussion. When fans witness a historic performance, expectations change. People don't just expect the win, they expect the moment to feel acknowledged. They expect excitement to match the scale of what they just watched. Instead, attention started drifting away from the achievement itself and toward how the night was framed afterward. And once that happened, the basketball story stopped being only about records. It became about recognition. Not because every historic game needs dramatic speeches, but because moments that feel historic create expectations that go beyond the box score. And when those expectations collide with a more restrained response, people start filling in the silence themselves. Most debates around sports don't begin with one moment. They build. A substitution people question. A quote that feels incomplete. A game that somehow becomes harder than it should have been. Then eventually, people stop treating those moments as isolated and start arranging them into a bigger picture. That's where Indiana's conversation seems to be right now. Over the last stretch of games, one theme kept coming up among fans and commentators. Why do so many comfortable situations suddenly become uncomfortable? Double-digit leads shrinking. Fourth quarters becoming tense. Games that look controlled turning into late possessions and rescue moments. That doesn't automatically point to dysfunction. Basketball is chaotic. Runs happen. Teams adjust. But repeated patterns invite attention. And once attention locks in, every coaching decision gets examined differently. Rotation choices became part of the discussion. Fans replayed stretches where momentum seemed to shift after lineup changes. People debated timing, rhythm, and whether certain combinations stayed on the floor too long or came off too early. Again, not proof of internal problems. Just the reality of what happens when expectations rise. Then another layer entered the conversation: perception around recognition. Sports fans notice language. They notice who gets highlighted, who gets detailed praise, who receives broad acknowledgement. And fair or not, when supporters become emotionally invested in a player or team identity, those details start feeling symbolic. To some observers, there appeared to be a gap between what happened on the floor and what received emphasis afterward. Others pushed back and argued that team-first messaging is exactly what good coaching looks like. Both interpretations gain traction. That's what makes moments like this difficult. Because once people believe they're seeing a pattern, every future moment becomes evidence for one side or the other. Whether that perception reflects reality is a different question. But perception in sports has a way of becoming part of the story long before anyone inside the building says a word. And then came the moment that changed the conversation completely. Not a shot. Not a timeout. Not a coaching decision. A few seconds of post-game footage. That was all it took. The clip spread fast because it looked simple enough to interpret instantly. People watched a brief sequence after the game and started debating whether a customary exchange had happened or whether it hadn't. Within hours, reactions split into camps. One side saw something deliberate. A message. A sign of growing frustration. Proof that the tension people had been discussing was finally becoming visible. The other side saw something completely different. A crowded post-game environment. Players moving in different directions. Normal basketball routine being turned into a headline because attention was already focused there. And that's the part that matters. Because moments like this rarely go viral because of what's actually visible. They go viral because of everything people already believed before pressing play. If nobody had been discussing rotations, post-game comments, leadership style, or team chemistry, that clip probably disappears in an hour. Instead, it landed inside a conversation that already existed. That gave it meaning. But meaning and certainty aren't the same thing. There's an important distinction here. Public footage can show actions, timing, and reactions, but it cannot confirm private emotions, intentions, or relationships. That's where sports narratives become powerful. People begin filling in missing context. Sometimes they're right. Sometimes they're completely wrong. And often, reality turns out less dramatic than the internet version. But once a moment becomes symbolic, facts alone rarely slow it down. Because at that point, viewers stop watching the clip for what happened. They start watching it for what they think it represents. At that point, there was still a path for the conversation to settle. A win could stay a win. The clip could fade. Attention could move back to basketball. But then the post-game comments arrived, and suddenly the focus shifted again. Stephanie White addressed the growing noise surrounding narratives, speculation, and coverage around the team. The message, at its core, seemed straightforward. Not everything circulating online reflects reality, and people should be careful about treating speculation as fact. That idea, on its own, isn't controversial. Every high-profile team deals with incomplete stories, edited clips, and reactions that move faster than context. Coaches protect locker rooms. Players protect relationships. That's normal. But communication becomes difficult when emotions are already elevated. Because once fans feel like they've been noticing patterns for weeks, broad pushback against the conversation can sometimes have the opposite effect. Instead of calming the debate, it can make people feel like their concerns are being dismissed. And that's where leadership enters the spotlight. Not because leaders are expected to reveal private conversations. Not because they owe explanations for every viral clip. But because when expectations become enormous, people pay attention not only to decisions, they pay attention to tone. People ask themselves simple questions. Does the message match what they've been watching? Does it feel transparent? Does it acknowledge the emotions surrounding the moment? Whether fair or unfair, that becomes the standard. The challenge for any coach in that position isn't proving critics wrong. It's keeping the focus where they want it. Because once the discussion moves from game strategy to communication style, every future quote carries extra weight. And suddenly, instead of explaining the story, you become part of it. At some point, every fast-rising team reaches the same moment. The wins stop being enough. People stop asking whether the team is improving and start asking whether the team is becoming what it's supposed to become. That's where Indiana feels different now. Because this isn't just a rebuilding roster quietly trying to develop. This is one of the most watched teams in the league. Every game generates clips. Every quote becomes content. Every rotation decision becomes a debate. That level of attention changes everything. Normal growing pains suddenly feel bigger. A close win becomes a conversation about identity. A substitution becomes a philosophy discussion. A press conference becomes national content. That isn't necessarily fair, but it comes with visibility. And visibility changes expectations. The Fever are carrying something unusual right now, the pressure of trying to build a contender while also becoming one of the defining stories in professional basketball. That means every decision gets interpreted through two lenses: basketball logic and public meaning. A coach may see development. Fans may see urgency. The organization may see long-term process. The audience may see missed opportunity. Those worlds don't always move at the same speed. That's why this moment feels bigger than one clip or one post-game reaction. Because underneath all of it sits a much harder question. When expectations accelerate faster than results, how do you protect the team while still showing progress? Indiana doesn't just need wins. It needs clarity. The reason these conversations keep returning isn't because people want drama. It's because attention follows possibility. And right now, people believe this team could become something enormous. That belief raises the standard for everyone involved. For now, Indiana keeps doing the one thing that changes every conversation in sports: winning. And winning has a strange effect. It softens criticism. It buys time. It turns difficult questions into background noise, at least temporarily. Because when the result is positive, people are willing to overlook the details. But only for so long. Eventually, every team reaches the point where outcomes alone stop answering the questions underneath them. That's the feeling surrounding Indiana now. Not crisis. Not collapse. Just unfinished tension. A team with enormous potential that still feels like it's searching for the version of itself everyone believes exists. The headlines today are about reactions, recognition, body language, and moments that may or may not mean more than people think. But those stories won't matter forever. What matters is what comes next. Do the wins start looking cleaner? Do the conversations quiet naturally? Does the focus return to basketball? Because that's the thing about expectations once they reach this level. They don't disappear. They wait. And if progress becomes obvious, the noise fades on its own. If not, every close game, every quote, every small moment becomes another piece of a larger story. Indiana won. But the feeling around this team says something bigger is still being decided. And whatever happens next will probably matter more than everything people are arguing about today.